Chapter 09. The File. Struggling, he stood up and slowly walked over to his desk on the other side of the room. He appeared to be searching for something, opening drawer after drawer. He even looked through the books on the bookcase behind the desk. Finally, he found what he was looking for, a picture, hidden within a thick book. Returning, he also grabbed a thick stack of papers from his desk. Sitting down in his armchair, he laid down the stack of papers on the table, leaned into Azer and showed him the photo. "Here's a picture from years ago," he said. "It shows Jose, Eric, Irish Jack and me in the room next door. We used to organize peace marches back then. We hoped to prevent conflicts between East and West and save humanity from the threat of nuclear war. Irish Jack was a key organizer, and Eric and Jose had traveled all the way from Denmark to join the march." Azer looked at the old photo black and white and gave it to Topaz. She glanced at it, then placed it on the table and smiled. "Looks like your clinic was converted into a scout camp." The professor replied, "Berlin was a true hot spot during the Cold War. I believed it would be one of the very first targets in an atomic war. People like Jose and Eric came from other countries to show support. As a town resident, I felt it was my duty to give them a place to stay." As if talking to himself, he added, "We were young and had big dreams. We thought we could change history. Not sure if our peace efforts really made a difference." It seemed the professor's youthful idealism had faded into disappointment over the years. Azer considered mentioning that Jose often expressed similar sentiments, but he refrained. Instead, he took the photo, peeked at the back and handed it back to Topaz, saying, "Here's a piece of a poem by Jose in English." She struggled a bit but managed to read the worn-out text. "You can't deny your past. You can't escape your future. Take it or lose it all." The professor nodded. "Yes, that's Jose's. I had forgotten about it." He picked up a stack of papers from the table, skimmed through it and looked at Azer, saying, "Here's Eric's medical record you sent via email. I like reading on paper, not screens. My secretary, Annabella, printed it for me." Topaz hesitated before asking, "Professor, this might seem like a simple question, but I need to know. What's the difference between a neurologist and a psychiatrist when they both work on the same brain?" The professor replied, "If your brain has a problem, you need to talk to a neurologist. If your brain is the problem, you need to talk to a psychiatrist." As if she had received a coded message that required deciphering, confused, she looked at the professor. With a strained smile, the professor tried to explain it in down-to-earth terms. "The residue of what you eat and drink is excreted through the intestines and kidneys. The residue of your brain is delivered to the psychiatrist." Without awaiting any response from Topaz, he continued, "I apologize, but I need to switch to German." Topaz said, "Sure, Azer can fill me in later." The professor replied, "I'd appreciate that." Looking at Azer, he continued in German, "In Berlin, war and weapons have influenced everything, even a neurology professor's thoughts. A person's personality is like the ammo in a shotgun, with emotions like powder and thoughts like bullets. When I meet people, I silently assess their personalities. Jose and Eric represent the two ends of a spectrum. Jose is deep and thoughtful. He used to say, 'Think twice, act once.'" He took a sip of cold coffee and cleared his dry throat before continuing, "Now let's talk about Jose's opposite, Eric. He's like a ticking time bomb. During the peace protests, he was always searching for a chance to let out his inner tensions. He often got into fights with the police, considering the peace movement like a street gang. He wasn't seeking peace but rather confrontation." He explained, "Eric and Jose are on opposite sides of a personality scale. Eric is more emotional and less intellectual, while Jose is smart and knows how to control his feelings. Jose is the creator, Eric is the destroyer. Jose writes books and Eric might want to burn them. Books are the passive memory of mankind. Books are like engines, driving humanity forward and at the same time as brakes stopping us from going back to the Stone Age. To return to the topic, Azer asked, "How does Eric's personality affect his current state?" The professor replied, "I'm not entirely certain if Eric has a diagnosable mental condition." Azer protested, his voice tinged with frustration. "But Professor, I found him. He was shot in the chest and left bleeding. Since his escape he hasn't spoken a single word. There must be a reason for that." Despite the contradiction, the professor explained calmly, "Certainly there's an explanation for his behavior. However, I don't believe it's directly linked to the gunshot. It's not surprising that the MRI scan of his brain has been normal, according to these documents." He continued, "Someone has labeled this situation with the Latin term, selective mutism, meaning a person can't speak in certain situations. But it's always tied to emotions, not to physical brain damage." Taking another sip of cold coffee, he moistened his lips. Azer reached for the thermos, wanting to pour more coffee into the professor's cup. The professor, however, stopped him by placing his hand over the cup and said, "No need, I prefer my coffee cold. Help yourself."